Moramai, good morning from St John's on this special day, our national day. Wherever you're watching in the world, a Manxie elsewhere, a former island resident, or right here on the Isle of Man, welcome to the Tynwald Day 2024, the Midsummer Sitting of Tynwald. A ceremony that dates back thousands of years. History, pride, tradition and culture, all wrapped up in one. I am Kiri Kermode.
And I'm James Davis, and as you say, Kiri, really, today is, dare I call it, a piece of parliamentary theatre, if you like. It is the midsummer, the open-air ceremony of Tynwald, our unique parliamentary democracy. And just looking around, I'm listening to Onken Silver Band under the baton of David Caron. We're just seeing the final wreaths being laid along the processional way. We've got the Bull and Bane as well to ward off evil spirits. Menannan's cloak is nowhere near in sight. And I think it's fair to say we've got everything in place for a wonderful Tynwald Day. Yes, there's pomp. Yes, there's pageantry. We're listening to the band now. We'll have the RAF Regiment band shortly. But it's also pomp, pageantry, pride, passion. Are there any other P words we can weave in? I'm not sure.
It's absolutely fine, and the population will be here.
The population will be here. It's getting very busy already. And as I mentioned, Onken Silver Band there under the baton of David Caron, and they will be leading the schools parade in around 40 minutes' time or so. So a busy day for them. And actually fresh from success. They have had a very successful 2024 so far. They took third place in their section at the Northwest Regional Brass Band Championships in Blackpool. So a band certainly making their mark both locally and further afield. I mentioned the rushes being laid, of course. This is the processional pathway between the chapel and the hill, which will be so well populated a little bit later on. And they are a tribute to the sea god Menannan, where Manx men and women place the rushes on the summit of South Barrule traditionally. Another tradition, that Bull and Bane, that piece of St John's Wort, and of course wearing a hat at a jaunty angle. You've carried it off well, I've got to say. It's easy for us blokes. It's top hat and tails or suits, suit and tie. What goes into the outfit choice, if you don't mind me asking?
It's a very special day. Like you say, it's our national day. It's a day where we get dressed up. It's a day off work. We all come together, catch up with friends that we may have not seen since the previous Tynwald Day, go and enjoy Fair Day. It is such an important day. But the outfits, everyone comes in their finery. They want to watch the hill ceremony and be part of it. And everybody's looking at each other, aren't they, really?
They want to see what they're wearing, what they're doing. If it's slightly different from last year,
there we go.
Absolutely, it's easy for us blokes. Of course, we're talking about pride. What a week it has been for everyone in the Isle of Man, when you've got to say the Isle of Man's most famous son ever, certainly for a generation, becoming officially cementing his place in cycling history this week. I think there's a banner up just over on the Fairfield there paying tribute to Mark Cavendish and his 35 stage wins, and I suppose it's that character and that determination that he has shown throughout his career and continues to show. That character and determination, they're real Manx traits, if you like, aren't they, which will be on show from so many people in all walks of life here today.
Absolutely. The island is set apart from many others. We all fight and want to be successful. The island has such a vast amount of successful sports people for such a small population, and yeah, Mark has done extremely well. But today everybody is out, all of the stalls are here, all getting prepared, and can you smell that ace food? That is amazing smell.
Absolutely. If we disappear now, presumably we'd be in trouble, so we better stay put for the moment. I've got to say, we talked about Mark Cavendish quite a few days. It's been quite a night for anyone following in the adjacent isle, of course. A landmark election, a major shift in the landscape of power. More on that later today. But our Chief Minister, Alfred Cannon, in a few hours' time, when all change and the new Prime Minister of the UK is sworn in, Alfred Cannon will actually officially have worked with four different British Prime Ministers. And when you think about that, he's not been in post 3 years himself. So there's a lot to be said, you could say, for the stability in the Isle of Man. Certainly it's been a time of upheaval in the UK. Talking of the Chief Minister, very much a special day. He's leading the troops today. His family, it goes back generations. I mean, I was reading before about his great-granddad, his father, of course, David Cannon, was an heir, Michael MHK, before the constituencies merged till 2011. He took over from him. His grandfather and his great-grandfather, they all had roles as well. I was just looking before, the Reverend Canon Charles, Alfred Cannon, Vicar of Kirkmichael for 33 years, a former chaplain of the Keys. He was a Manx speaker as well. He read the laws on Tynwald Hill for years. Alfred's great-grandfather, John William Cannon, also represented the constituency of Michael in the early 1900s and in the mid-1920s. And then, of course, his father, David Michael MHK, for 29 years. So when you put it all into the mix, 4 generations of the Cannon family, approaching 120 years, and present for a total of 91 years on Tynwald Hill. That is quite something. Looking ahead to today, we caught up with him, the Chief Minister, a few days ago. Well, Chief Minister Alfred Cannon, Tynwald Day 2024 is here, your third as Chief Minister. What do you make of not just the day, but the events which surround it?
Well, it's obviously a hugely important time for the island and the government to celebrate its identity, to reflect on the self-governing and self-determination that we have here on the island, the relationship that we have between the government and the people of the island, and I think a reflection sometimes on the nation's current positioning and the good things that we celebrate here on the Isle of Man, our security, our right to self-determination, our history, and perhaps think about how that will develop and enhance into the future.
The halfway mark in your administration recently passed, of course. Does it feel like nearly 3 years?
Like everything, the last 3 years have flown by. There's been a huge amount going on, as we know, and I often refer to. We've had a major pandemic, we've had a significant cost of living crisis, we've had huge energy spikes, a war in Ukraine, a lot of political turmoil around us, and of course, you know, 1 or 2 events on the island that have really tried and tested everybody. But look, we're through a lot of that now. I feel that we're in a good place going into the next couple of years. There's obviously a general election taking place. There'll be a new future in terms of the relationship with I suspect, a new government in the UK. But yes, no, the years certainly go by very quickly, particularly when you're in politics.
An important 12 months coming up. What would you say are the main challenges, or 2, ahead, as you see it, over the next year?
You know, we have a lot of pressure on our budget, so I think there's quite a big focus on next year's budget already starting to take place. I've signalled some of the importance attached to that. We're a low tax economy, we've got to retain a low tax economy, and we've got to try and find answers to some of our big funding challenges when it comes to public service delivery, particularly around health and social care. There's new international tax requirements coming through, and we've also got a money val, so an international examination of our financial probity, if you like. Preparing for that will become, is a big issue at the moment, but will become an even bigger issue as we move into the next 12 months. So there's lots for us to deal with.
You've recently launched an efficiency review into headcount and delivery across government departments. At a time when demand for public services is growing, what's your gut instinct into what those findings may be?
You know, when you're dealing with international events, when you're dealing with pandemics and they're having direct effects on the island, you're having to utilise all your resources to cope with that. I think, you know, then having the cost of living crises alongside a pretty disruptive employment tribunal as well means that there's quite a lot of rearranging that is needed within government. We've gone a long way to stabilising that. We've brought in some new senior people. We've put in an operations performance board. We've got through the cost of living crisis. We've helped people do that, intervened into the electricity marketplace, for example. But now I think as we come into calmer waters, inflation's gone back down to that sort of 2 to 3% level, and perhaps some of the international pressure has eased just for the time being. Now's a good chance to, as I said, to look at government's operations. And I expect that there's a lot of tidying up to do, both in the way that we are reporting our personnel figures. I think there's a good need now for to reinstill some discipline around how people are recruited into the public service, and to make sure that we're on top of that, and also an understanding, as I said, of how we fund some of the critical areas where there's a lot of funding pressure, health and social care. As you know, there's a tax increase this year which went specifically to fund that area, but how you carry on funding that and remain economically competitive as well. So that's what really we'll be looking to do, and try and understand what we might do in the remaining term of this government to drive that efficiency.
I've got to ask, on July the 5th, the congregation will sing hymns, there will be readings, there will be prayers, which the majority will freely embrace. Is it on occasions like this when you're perhaps mindful of the current debate about the island's Lord Bishop?
You know, there's always changes, and we shouldn't be afraid of change. I think what I am always mindful of, you know, when you're going through Tynwald and Tynwald Day, is the privilege that I have in holding position in government, of the role that I currently have, obviously, as Chief Minister, and perhaps it's time to reflect and you know, understand, of course, that, you know, these positions really are given by the grace of the people, and to appreciate it really, and it's time for me to sort of reflect and be thankful for the opportunity that I've had and still have to make differences and changes and try and take the island forward.
Chief Minister Alfred Cannon, thank you very much for your time. Have a super Tynwald Day.
Thank you very much indeed.
There we go, that was the Chief Minister, Alf Cannon, a few days ago. Now we are joined by Peter... my cousin, Paul Crane. Well, you've remembered your top hat today, Paul.
I have remembered my top hat, yes. When the Queen died, we'd been travelling to America, and when we got there we heard the Queen had died, so I knew that meant I had to come back. My wife stayed in America, she was watching on YouTube, and the Manx radio version, and realised I'd come out without my hat.
Oh,
so she got a friend to collect my hat and bring it to me before I'd realised it was missing.
There we go, saved the day.
Yeah.
But look at this weather today, Paul.
Great,
it is just cracking the flags. And what does it mean to you, a proud Manxman?
Well, it's extraordinary, really. I tried to get in the Keys a couple of times. It didn't happen, so it's been quite extraordinary to find myself in Legislative Council late in life, as it were. It's such a privilege, it's such an honour, it's such a responsibility, and Tynwald Day caps it all, especially if you're not going to get wet.
This is it. And the weather hasn't been so great lately as well, so we have been worried.
The start of the week was bad, that's right, yeah.
Oh gosh, I'm losing my hat.
Yes, okay.
It's not designed for the weather today, is it? There we go. But yeah, so today, the pomp and pageantry, the Fairfield, a day for Manx trading of livestock many years ago. You'll be well aware of that. How has it changed over the years?
Well, I remember in my childhood anyway, there were just half a dozen stalls on the field here behind us. I remember the coconut shy in particular. There was nothing over beyond at all, you know, in the field behind, no global village or anything. And the stalls weren't allowed to start until the ceremonies had finished.
Oh, I see.
And that was, tested my patience as an 8-year-old, I'm sure, yeah.
I bet.
But now the levelling thing, when you get in on the Legislative Council seats on the very top of the hill there, you can see the grandstands partly full, and you can see the ground here partly full, but the stalls are really active.
I'm going to have to take this off. It's really done my head. 1 second. Sorry, guys. Everything happens on the Isle of Man on Tynwald Day, clearly, including the wind. It never is far away, is it? There we are. So this afternoon, what will it include for you?
This afternoon I'm going down to the Global Village to help on one of the stalls down there, yeah, so that's always a favourite haunt, really. It's a great atmosphere, and catching up with the island's mixed community, you know, the diversity all in life.
Lovely. Well, that's great. Thank you so much, Paul.
Okay,
I'll hand over to James now.
Well, thank you very much indeed. Nice to see you, Paul. I'm joined by the Clerk of Tynwald, Jonathan King. Good morning to you.
Morning.
You've been at this ceremony in various guises, both Deputy Clerk for a long period and, of course, is now Clerk of Tynwald. And a night where we've had momentous change in the UK overnight. I would imagine that the job of promoting today and inviting guests when there's an election probably is a bit trickier than normal. But in terms of relations with the UK, it's more important than ever.
It's very important, James, and of course we didn't know when we planned Tynwald Day all those centuries ago that today was going to be the day after a general election in the UK. The result is that Tynwald Day is Tynwald Day. There's no big impact for us, but when we look at the official guests who've been able to come this year, it's been a non-party political year. So we have diplomats, very glad to welcome the ambassador from Norway and also the ambassador from Italy to the UK. We have judges from Northern Ireland and Guernsey, and we have presiding officers from the devolved administrations, because of course they are not allowed to campaign with their parties, so they've been able to come and enjoy Tynwald Day with us, and we're glad to have them from presiding officers from Scotland, Northern Ireland and also the Republic of Ireland.
Well, that's a very diplomatic answer, and it has to be, of course it does. You talk about all those centuries ago. I mean, year by year, when does the planning for Tynwald Day start? Presumably about 11 and a half months before the next one.
Absolutely. Tynwald Day is the 5th of July, and the planning for Tynwald Day starts on the 6th of July. It's an all-year-round pursuit of the Clerk of Tynwald's office, and we're very grateful to everyone who participates. We often get feedback over the next few days, and we're very glad to have that, because we want the day to be as good as it can as the National Day of the Isle of Man.
And I have to ask you as well, you will take an interest, of course you will, at events in the adjacent isles. So did you manage, I know you've got lots of duties, there was the Tynwald banquet last night, for example, but the President's dinner. Were you able to follow a little bit through the night, and there's not too much sleep, I can notice there?
I managed to watch a bit of the count. The exit poll was announced at 10 o'clock, of course, and I think I managed about 4 hours worth of counting to about 2 in the morning. But there wasn't really a Portillo moment, was there? Or at least
Sadly not.
If there was, I didn't see it.
No. Well, to be honest, you did till 2 o'clock. I got up about 3-ish. So between us, we could probably have a good conversation on what the other one missed. Certainly. Jonathan, have a super day. I know there's a lot goes into today, and thank you very much for your time. It's really nice to see you. And I'm hopefully going to be joined now as well by one of the Garth MHKs, Andrew Smith. Welcome. Good morning to you.
Good to see you. Beautiful day.
A beautiful day. Here with your good lady as always. This is your third Tynwald Day as MHK. What does it mean?
Well, I think for my third year I've got some fairly pertinent points, because we've had a lot of issues regarding bishops' vote and one thing or another this year, and I think that obviously the Royal Chapel here is an integral part of the ceremony, right? And who can argue that, Christianity wasn't brought to the island many years ago, St Patrick, St Maccled and others, and then the Wesley brothers. So I think we've got to recognise, and the national anthem, every verse of our national anthem actually talks about God's goodness to the Isle of Man.
Let's go political for a moment then, because obviously in there, in about an hour or so's time, and on the hill indeed, prayers, there will be readings, there will be prayers, people will sing hymns. I think at the last count, I think there was a poll, was there not? And I think it was just under 50% of the island's religion, according to the poll, was Christian, and then there were different various religions. So obviously it's something you passionately believe in. But do you believe on a day like today, when the vast majority happily engage with all of that it actually focuses the mind more?
Well, hopefully, and whether faith or no faith, you can't remove the heritage of the Isle of Man, and this Royal Chapel is an intrinsic part of that, because, as you know, and then as we walk out the chapel, I think this year especially, and look towards the hill, we have time to reflect on the 80th anniversary of Normandy landings. So we've got time to reflect on. We're surrounded by cadets from all the various forces. We've got the serving military here, and we can pay due respect, as we should do, as we pass the War Memorial. So I think that's another key point for me this year. And then moving towards the hill, which we say, well, and we're all gathered there, and we've got our current Lieutenant Governor, His Excellency Sir John Lorimer, representing the King. And then we've got obviously MHKs from all cheating good parts of the island. We've got other leaders of Douglas Corporation and other local authorities. We've got captains of the parish, and we all need to recognise that today is a rededication of our lives to serve the people with humility and integrity.
Let me wrap this up, because I know you're needed elsewhere. It has been a milestone week in the House of Keys this week, no question about that, with the ongoing assisted dying legislation as well, as it makes its way through the legislative process. Why did you take the stance you did? And obviously you've half answered that with your previous comments.
Yeah, well, I have, but obviously what I did was I tried to put that to one side, and I tried to look at this objectively. And the more that I researched, and it's easy to make a decision when you've got a lack of knowledge, which is a dangerous thing, and it's easy to make that decision in the first place. And yes, I said it right at the outset of the election. It wasn't an election campaign, it wasn't on my manifesto, but I said I would review it. I reviewed it, and in the deeper detail I recognised it was very, very dangerous. So that's why initially I voted. I was the first and only one, other than joined with Kate Lord-Brannan, that we would actually not let the bill make its passage. But sadly, obviously, we voted against. And you see now that we've had a committee, and you see also there's been over 100 amendments to this bill, including from some members of that committee. So does that not tell you that obviously even in their review there are anomalies in there that they are not happy with?
There's a long way to go.
A long way to go.
Andrew Smith, Kate, have a super day. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Really appreciate it.
Opportunity.
I'm going to ask, dare I say it, a duo of beauties to make their way over to me. They know who they are, incidentally, because they're walking this way now. I am, of course, talking about Anne Call at MHK and Juliet. Good morning to you both. Lovely to see you. Can you ever get enough of an occasion like this?
No, honestly, it's just, you feel so proud to have the privilege to actually take part in the ceremony, to stand on Tynwald Hill and sing the national anthem. I can't tell you honestly how that feels. It's lovely.
This is your eighth. I was going to say seventh. Yeah, eighth Tynwald Day. Do you still get those butterflies?
Yes.
Still the apprehension?
Every time it's like the first time.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can't tell you how lovely it is to be able to do it.
And I can see Mr. Corlett here as well.
Mr. Corlett is lurking in the background.
John, absolutely, because behind every good woman is a man, or is it the other way around?
I don't know what I'd do without him.
Yeah, no, it's a team game. Juliet, lovely to see you. I've got to ask, in this week that we have been celebrating the absolutely world-class achievements of Mark Cavendish, what you called for well over a year or two ago now, perhaps now people are beginning to see what you were calling for back then. Just remind the audience what exactly you're hoping for.
So I was fortunate to be Education Minister and have contacts with obviously Mark and the family. So I made contact with them. So we are naming the NSC Raceway after Mark, and unbelievable Sir Mark Cavendish Raceway in the Isle of Man that will, I believe, become a tourist destination in the future. But I've said we'd like a statue too, but I'd really love an Onken velodrome, because bring it back to where it started.
Where it all began.
But no, amazing achievements, and I believe there's a big banner up to celebrate today. Yes. So, and I think that's really important. So proud to be Manx today.
There is indeed, and I would imagine if they flock to the Bee Gees statue as they do, they'll certainly flock to something befitting Mark Cavendish's extraordinary achievements. Tell me. Today is obviously, yes, there's an element of political life, but it's mainly parliamentary. But have you, and I know you both got busy times because there's so many related events, but have you been following events in the adjacent isle overnight?
Yes. So,
any surprises?
No. Well, actually, no.
I don't think so. I think it was expected. I think what we need to know now is what the impact could be for the Isle of Man and what we're going to do to move forward. But today's about our Manx people, celebrate the Isle of Man, how proud we should all be about our island, and we don't need to do what the UK does, and we shouldn't do. We should just continue for what the island needs.